Hi, I'm Lee Francois.
Hi, I'm Koya Francois, and this is a
recap video from
the October 21st presentation, Lee versus COVID Part 2.
And why I took the red pill.
Before I continue,
let me say this.
I am not a medical doctor, nor can I legally give you medical advice.
Anything that you hear me say is solely my opinion and recommendations
based on the research that me and my husband have spent months compiling in order to give you the unfiltered truth.
Feel free to pause or completely stop this video if you should become disturbed about what you're hearing or seeing,
because some of this information will be hard to receive.
Lastly, all of the content used in this video has not been edited in any way to make you believe one side of the story.
All of these videos existed in the public domain online.
Later on in the video, you will hear from a practicing naturopathic doctor and a veteran herbalist
who will give you up-to-date information about the current world crisis
and things you need to know to keep you and your family safe.
So be sure to watch this video in its entirety.
Here's the first set of video clips to start us off.
Do you believe in fate, Neil?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
The idea that we are now a few days away from a new administration, given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, is that there is no question that there will be a surprise outbreak.
In 1999, patents on coronavirus started showing up, and thus began the rabbit trail.
March 2003, panic grips Hong Kong as a deadly new virus sweeps through the city.
In 2003, the Center for Disease Control saw the possibility of a gold strike, and that was the coronavirus outbreak that happened in Asia. They saw that a virus they knew could be easily manipulated was something that was very valuable, and in 2003 they sought to patent it. And they made sure that they controlled the proprietary rights to the disease, to the virus, and to its detection, and all of the measurement of it.
I've seen so many doctors online that have made their own webcam videos, just perplexed by the protocol that the CDC had given them.
Well, last Friday, I received a 7-page document that sort of told me that if I had an 86-year-old patient that had pneumonia but was never tested for COVID-19, But sometime after she came down with pneumonia, we learned that she had been exposed to her son, who had no symptoms, but later on was identified with COVID-19, that it would be appropriate to diagnose on the death certificate COVID-19.
When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that? Why are we being pressured to add COVID to maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is? I think so.
Why would they want to skew the number of deaths due to COVID-19?
Well, fear is a great way to control people.
We have no problems at all with mRNA vaccines.
Right.
It's just this particular vaccine, because of the spike protein and because it cleaves off the cell and it goes throughout your body and your brain, your heart, and anywhere, that you can have these symptoms that are so varied, whether it's a 16-year-old who can't talk or see 48 hours after injection, or someone whose, hand shakes, or someone who's, my carpet cleaner, Tim, he's like disabled now.
The flu vaccines increase the odds by 36% of getting COVID-19.
Where does that data come from?
A publication last year where the military who had been vaccinated with influenza were more susceptible to coronaviruses. Coronaviruses are in every animal. So if you've ever had a flu vaccine, you were injected with coronaviruses. And then to put on a mask.
This doesn't make any sense. We wear masks in an acute setting to protect us. We're not wearing masks. Why is that? Because we understand microbiology, we understand immunology, and we want strong immune systems. Our immune system is used to touching. We share bacteria, staphylococcal, streptococcal bacteria, viruses. We develop an immune response daily to this stuff. When you take that away from me, my immune system drops. As I shelter in place, my immune system drops. You keep me there for months, it drops more. And now I'm at home, hand washing vigorously, washing the counters, worried about things that are indeed what I need to survive.
You're not immunodeficient and you're not elderly. You should be able to go out without any gloves and without a mask. I think if you are those things, you should either shelter in place or wear a mask and gloves. I don't think everybody needs to wear a mask and gloves because it reduces your bacterial flora. It doesn't allow you to interact with society, and your bacteria flora and your viruses, your friends that protect you from other diseases, end up going away, and now you're more likely to get opportunistic infections that are hoping you don't have your good bugs fighting for you, if that makes sense.
For the sake of time, we've shortened these videos to only give you the meat and potatoes.
What are the meat and potatoes? Good question. According to our research, C19 was created in a lab and then accidentally released to the general public.
Now, why is that a big deal? I'll tell you why. It's a big deal because taxpayer dollars from the USA were being spent on funding the projects that go on in that lab.
This became widely public and known following the several hearings that took place in the Senate when Dr. Fauci lied,
stating that the US never funded that type of work.
But all of a sudden, he's saying that we did because it was research.
Here's the second set of video clips.
So Anthony Fauci.
My name is Dr. Tony Fauci. I'm the director.
The man who is heading the pandemic task force was involved in a cover-up.
He directed the cover-up. And in fact, everybody else was paid off, and paid off big time. Millions of dollars in funding from Tony Fauci's organization, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. These investigators that committed the fraud continue to this day to be paid big time by the NIAID.
And the whole world is listening to his advice for how to handle this current pandemic. How do we know that what he's saying is what we need to be learning?
What he's saying is absolute propaganda, and the same kind of propaganda that he's perpetrated to kill millions since 1984.
We know from this study quite clearly that there will be a delay in progression significantly greater than for individuals who do not take the drug.
Here we go. Booster shots and Delta variants were the main topics on discussion on Capitol Hill today, where Dr. Anthony Fauci and the CDC Director Rochelle Walensky testified before the Senate on the state of the pandemic we're all living through. Also on the docket, another verbal brawl between Fauci and Senator Rand Paul. Obviously, these two have a lot to talk about.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly, and I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
That gain-of-function research was going on in that lab, and NIH funded it.
That is
not.
not.
Get away from it. It meets your definition, and you are obfuscating the truth.
I'm not obfuscating the truth. You are implying that what we did was responsible for the deaths of individuals. I totally resent that. And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
As you know, I've been investigating Anthony Fauci's involvement in funding coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology for months now. Some of these discoveries I have already reported. I found out that his agency had funded 60 projects at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I found out that he wrote a paper back in 2012 where he argued that gain-of-function research, that's genetically manipulating coronaviruses to make them even more dangerous and more transmissible, Fauci said that this was worth the risk of a pandemic. And he even funded research, his agency funded coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in conjunction with the Chinese military. I mean, this is just astonishing and unthinkable. Why would America be funding research at a Wuhan lab in conjunction with the Chinese military? Fauci was up to his neck funding research in Wuhan. And it's something he himself, eventually, just a couple of months ago, had to admit.
It was incumbent upon us to study the animal-human interface and to understand what potential these viruses have of infecting humans, which then might damage the United States. So please let me finish. So you don't want to go to Hoboken, New Jersey, or to Fairfax, Virginia, to be studying the bat-human interface that might lead to an outbreak. So you go to China.
This just shows how incredibly stupid Anthony Fauci is. If there's a contagious coronavirus outbreak in China, obviously it's going to affect the rest of the world. And that's exactly what we've seen with this pandemic.
Paul joins me now. Senator, thanks for jumping on the show with us tonight. Do you feel vindicated?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, but it's not really about me. It's ultimately about the safety of the country and the world. You know, if 5 million people died from a virus that came out of a lab, wouldn't we want to know? Wouldn't we want to try to prevent this from happening again? You know, they've experimented with other viruses that are much more deadly. This virus has been very deadly, but it's got a 1% mortality. What if you had a virus that had a 15%? They're also experimenting with the MERS virus. This is a coronavirus from the early 2000s that had a 50% mortality. And here's what they say. They still to this day are trying to get around the truth. They say, well, it was unexpected that it gained function. Well, how do you know if it's unexpected or not? It's unknown. If you take a virus from a cave, you combine it with a virus that has a 50% mortality, it either is going to be more transmissible or less, but you don't know in advance whether it's going to be worse or better. So when it gains function, that is something that actually is expected. Some of these viruses are going to gain function, and then the possibility of leaking out, I think, is a horrific thing for mankind. But realize that Dr. Fauci's been steadfast in this. He said early on, even back to 2012, that should a scientist catch one of these diseases and spread it as a pandemic, that the collective accumulation of science would be worth the deaths of the people who die. And that's the question people need to ask him, but nobody on the left will ask him, was it worth 5 million people dying?
Do you think that moment, that clip that we played of that interaction, and you had numerous interactions with Dr. Fauci now with this information, do you think that was perjury? Was he lying to you under oath? Is there anything for you to do now? Is there any accountability, Senator?
it's not only me. Many scientists are coming forward who are experts in this area saying, yes, they've been funding gain of function. He's been parsing words. He's been sort of kind of going around the subject, and he never fully explains why it's not gain of function. But I think his explanation is this: oh, it was inadvertent. We didn't know they were going to gain function. Well, that's what a gain of function experiment is. You don't know when you combine two viruses if it'll be more deadly, but it might be. If you have half a brain, you know, if you combine two viruses, it sure might be more deadly. So he knew it was a gain of function experiment. He just didn't know the result to the experiment. But if that's the definition he's going to use, we still have all this craziness. You know, they do this in our country.
Right.
We need to try to make sure. So far, no Democrat has been willing to listen to this. I've been asking for an investigation for months. No bipartisan committee has brought this up or decided to tackle this. But, you know, we have scientists, Kevin Esvelt from MIT. He's one of the great technological discoverers of CRISPR and gene technology for disease. He's not a partisan. He wrote in the Washington Post a week ago that this is a civilization-ending kind of research, that this research could release something that could destroy civilization. That's coming from a scientist. That should scare us all.
And as a member of society, reaping all the benefits of being a member of society, you have a responsibility to society. And I think each of us, particularly in the context of a pandemic that's killing millions of people, you have got to look at it and say there comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision for the greater good of society.
So now that you have a general understanding of what's been going on in the world, let me now explain to you why we went live on October 21st.
On October 21st last year, I got COVID. And it was bad. Over the course of 3 weeks, I had difficulty breathing, sharp pains in my lower back, pneumonia in my lungs, and then eventually blood clots, which led to me losing 25% of my lung function. Needless to say, this was traumatizing, and I was now known as a long hauler.
When Lee was finally released from the hospital, they said that he was going to be on a long road to recovery because of all the damage COVID did to him physically and mentally. Even with this bad news, I wasn't giving up. I was determined to help my husband recover. My confidence came from the fact that I was enrolled in an herbalism and detox course at the time, and I believed that everything I was learning would help. So I immediately took him off the meds they prescribed him and got to work with the herbal alternatives.
So here are the results of my x-ray compared to last year, as well as my blood tests and antibodies tests. They all came back better than normal. I was completely healed by the grace of God and herbs from my wife, who knew how to pair them together.
At this point in the video, we'd like to play some segments from the October 21st presentation so that you guys can hear directly from the doctor and the herbalist.
I want to approach this conversation and preface my statements that will follow by saying that I am not attempting by any means to promote any means of fear-mongering. And what I mean by that is in any way that the circumstances at hand that we're faced with around the world today serves you, to have it serve you. Before I start talking about the subject matter that I think is prevalent to the conversation that we're having today, I would like to say that there are many different ways to utilize our resources in order to help us. So I am 100% faithful to my practices and to my connection with God. And I do know without a doubt that God put everything that we needed within our reach. One of the things that I'm coming across the most is that people are uneducated with regard to the relationships and the links and how this virus works and why it takes over some people and not others. And what has happened is that we have been given very surface level information about, all of this information. And for example, the S protein is something that is trending and people are talking about, but there are not many that know the particulars about what the S protein is. So I'd like to talk about all of the proteins that are impacted with this particular virus and what the vaccine is essentially designed to do as a result of the impact of the virus. I have actually been on this wave and aware that this particular pandemic was coming since about 2017. And I have been doing the research and staying abreast with what was coming on since about 2017. My clients, my soul tribe, my friends, my family, I have been speaking with about this, and some of them thought I lost my mind. But I was just giving warning as to what was coming and why. And started preparing. The first time that I really spoke about what was coming was on Pentecost Sunday in 2018. So I just wanted to give some background as to why I have this level of information. It's something that I've been researching for quite a while due to insight and inspiration. The CDC and other like organizations or people that are promoting the health maintenance around this particular virus are coming out and saying, no, it's not altering your DNA. And that is correct. It's not altering your DNA. It's targeted to alter your RNA, which is essentially the genetic makeup of exactly who you are and how you've arrived to be who you are. The HG protein serves as a receptor to destroy enzymes. Now, TLR9 is not in this particular graphic here, but TLR9 is a toll-like receptor, and it's duplicated within this particular virus, to repress the ability to fight autoimmune disorders or inflammation that are associated to the impacts of the COVID-19 virus. So maintaining natural immunity. So the mRNA of the COVID vaccine is documented as the only live and active ingredient within the medication that contains genetic material, which recode our natural mRNA. Again, this particular vaccine and virus are not recoding our DNA, it's recoding our RNA, and it is documented to do so. The purpose is to create proteins that simulate those in live viruses. The process of the gene mutation is scientifically referred to as a frame shift mutation. So medically, that's what they would call it. Essentially, by taking the vaccine, we are recoding our body's natural genetic disposition of proteins that we either make or we don't make. So we're replacing our body's natural ability to create the proteins that surround around our cells with the actual proteins that the virus or that the vaccine is putting into our bodies. So I just wanted to offer some support. So people are probably a little bit confused with where this whole thing is going. In the event that you've had the virus, yes, you can maintain natural immunity, but there are ways that you can also give yourself natural immunity if you haven't had the virus. If you have had the virus, there are ways, the vaccine. If you have taken the vaccine, there are ways that you can help to detox some of the chemical components from the actual vaccine and help to give your immune system a healthy boost. Either scenario, these are the ways that will help you do it in addition to a plethora of other things, but these are some of the things that will help. So if we can move on to the video, I just wanted to also provide, again, facts. I just want to give facts and so that people can, make their own educated decisions. But this particular video I actually saw when it came out and was very alarming to me. And it was this particular video that made me make my determination that I would no longer receive any new vaccines that were created and that I would no longer allow my children to have vaccination compounds. My children are vaccinated to a certain degree. There are several that I have declined, but it was this video that made me make the educated decisions around my choice is to do so.
Average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero. That's back from high school algebra, but let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
In the past, whenever there was a worldwide plague or a pandemic, the pathogens always ended up in the ground from washing and from toileting. In time, the soil probiotics broke the pathogens down, rendering it harmless. Deuteronomy 23:13 tells us that we're not even given the choice. We're commanded to bury our body waste in concentrated populations where sewage was not put underground and animals roamed freely like rats and mice, birds, cats, dogs, hogs. The animals would pick up the pathogen, store it in their bodies, then pass it on somewhere to another human being. These animals are now called, in the medical field, animal reservoirs. Any scavenger animal or scripturally defined unclean or unkosher animal that are described in Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14 is an animal reservoir, as they by nature, as a scavenger, eat decaying animal and plant materials of any kind. So eating, touching, and kissing the unclean animals of the Bible continually sheds and spreads these different toxic pathogens in the population. Because of the very small size of virus particles, the only masks that can truly protect you are the full hard plastic masks that cover the face, such as the eyes, nose, and mouth, with a charcoal filter. All other masks really are worthless at filtering out the tiny, tiny viruses. So that gives you basically some of the scriptural commands that are written for us to learn by. We're to take these in, we're to use these as guidelines as to how we deal with different pathogen-caused diseases. Now we're going to sort of shift gears here a little bit, because the next thing I want to talk about is, are there scriptural reasons why we're not even allowed to take vaccinations into our body? And there really are. The first reason I feel that we cannot even take vaccinations in our body is that aborted fetal cell lines are the backbone of the vaccination production system. As believers in the Creator, we can't have anything to do with the abortion industry, let alone take these unthinkable cell lines into our bodies.
I work at a pharmaceutical company. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just believe in research and science.
Well, in this database, you came across a chain of emails discussing fetal tissue and the COVID vaccine. Vanessa Gelman who works in Washington, D.C., is Senior Director of Worldwide Research. The question came up as an inquiry to our MedInfo group. They're asking, quote, did Pfizer make use of a cell line from an aborted fetus?
They want you to leave out the highlighted part, which is the one or more cell lines with an origin that can be traced back to human fetal tissue has been used in laboratory tests associated with the vaccine program.
And here we have your badge. You are an employee of Pfizer?
I work at the McPherson, Kansas plant. It's one of the biggest plants in the operation of Pfizer. We produce some of the most units.
This message from Vanessa Gilman.
From the perspective of corporate affairs, we want to avoid having the information on the fetal cell lines floating out there. We believe that the risk of communicating this right now outweighs any potential benefit that we could see, particularly with general members of the public who may take this information and use it in ways we may not want it out there. We have not received any questions from policymakers or media on this issue in the last few weeks, so we want to avoid raising this if possible.
Wow. We believe that the risk of communicating this right now outweighs any potential benefit we could see. They ought to put that on American currency. Philip Dormitzer, Vice President, Chief Scientific Officer. These are not low-level people here. So you're showing us emails between the Vice President of Pfizer, the Senior Director of Worldwide Research, about how to couch it a certain way, because we would not want to tell the people that it can be traced back to human fetal tissue. Copying Vanessa Gelman, we have an approved answer to this question, the question being about fetal tissue, which Vanessa can probably provide, HEK2932. What does that mean, HEK cells?
Human embryo kidney cells, and it was from experiment 293.
They've used cells from aborted fetuses.
Yes,
and they don't want the public to know that.
Yes.
That's staggering for society because of what you said, religious exemptions.
And they're denying our religious exemptions at Pfizer.
The second is related to the first in that taking these cell lines into our bodies is akin to a type of cannibalism, which the scripture calls an astonishment and an abomination in the sight of our Creator. In addition to this, we do not know exactly what happens when the female cell line is injected into a male or when a male cell line is injected into a female. This actually may be one of the many reasons we now have gender confusion, because children have taken vaccine after vaccine after vaccine in their childhood, and the DNA can multiply in their body, causing confusion to their own DNA. The third reason is that vaccinations contain many assorted DNA from many scripturally unclean animals like horses, monkey, mouse, crab, and more. This is told about, of course, the differentiation between in Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14. We're commanded not to take these animals into our bodies, and at times not even to touch these animals. So to take these in via the vaccine and then allow those DNAs to grow is just an abomination to our Father in heaven. The fourth is related to the third reason, in that these vaccinations sometimes contain chimera DNA. Chimera DNA is the fused DNA from two or more animals. This is injected directly into the muscle tissue. It isn't broken down by digestion like foods are, so that this also can multiply. The fifth reason is we are instructed that the bodies that we have been so graciously given as a gift are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And there are many harmful, toxic chemicals and heavy metals in the vaccinations. We cannot permit these to be purposely injected into our bodies, harming and actually lowering the effectiveness of our natural immune system, our digestive system, nervous system, and heart function. So these are some things to contemplate, especially you people that are Bible believers. These things should be very deeply considered before you take a vaccination or you allow your child to take a vaccination. They can affect you for a lifetime. We also know that the more vaccinations you take, the more likely you will have a lifelong health condition. And the more vaccinations you take, the more likely you will die after you have the vaccination. This should really scare anyone about this. There's so much suppressed information on this whole vaccination issue that you should do a lot of deep study on it.
Say something. Go ahead and say something, brother.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you, man. Thank you for the information that you're putting out, and I'm glad that I'm glad that in a way I'm not glad. I may be using a poor choice of words, but I think God used you to go through the experience you went through, to near death, to basically be a witness, a live witness to this pandemic, to survival of this pandemic. I don't trust a lot of people, man. I really don't. When it comes to the pandemic talk, a lot of opinionated people, you have a lot of people to the left and a lot of people to the right. And I'm just a regular person, you know what I'm saying? I'm not, associate's degree and everything. So when it comes to medical terminologies and in-depth conversations about these things, I'm not really too keen on it. So so I'm forced to kind of rely on information, and it's very confusing and it's scary, because I've already had COVID. I'm not vaccinated. When I got COVID, it was pretty bad, and so I was given the choice of doing something called, I think it was experimental, the monoclonal infusion. I mentioned that to people, and they don't even know what I'm talking about. And that's scary, because when I got it, it seemed like I was given no choice. Like it was explained to me, like, you have to do this. If you don't do this, then there's, a higher possibility that you're going to get so much worse. So when somebody poses something to you in that sense, and you're not as knowledgeable in these subjects, you tend to try to rely on the information that they give you. And you make the choices based on the information that they give you. So I went through the monoclonal infusion, and I got better. I got better. But still I'm unvaccinated. So I was told that because of the monoclonal infusion that I did, I would have to wait like a period of, 93 months or so that it can flush out of my system, and then I can go ahead and be vaccinated. But so I don't know. I'm just like, I've been really leaning towards vaccination so much because all the media that you see, everything that you see on TV and the information that's being given and stuff, it's almost like this whole thing reminds me of like the whole Donald Trump thing, where you had people fighting for a right and storming storming the house and everything like that, just because they believe in Trump. It reminds me of that, because now I can have a conversation with someone about the vaccine and really want to have a sincere, logical conversation about it, and come off, in a way where I don't claim to know everything about it, but this is what I kind of do know. And every conversation I have with people, I don't know why, it just seems like people are trying to convince me. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like a car salesman. You understand? It's like health shouldn't be a car salesman. Health shouldn't be a pitch. It should be reality.
Heck, I do just want to let you know that monoclonal antibodies can be, they have been addressed as a remedy itself and within itself, as opposed to an additional vaccination. So monoclonal antibodies have been used in varying forms of recovering modalities through, cancer recoveries and things of that nature. They have been around for a little while. While I personally would recommend more of a natural approach, such as the list of supplements that our bodies naturally produce, but monoclonal antibodies are not one and the same as the vaccine. However, they have proven to be very effective in combating the coronavirus overall and helping with aiding the recovery of your human vessel. Senate right now is actually on the floor currently in the talks of approving monoclonal antibodies as a remedy for those who fall ill to COVID and need some sort of assistance with recovery. I am going to say this though, the mind is a tricky thing. So if you really feel that receiving a vaccination is going to help you, it's like a placebo effect. There are doctors out there that are called homeopathic doctors who are under the belief that like cures like. And right now there is a doctor that's trending globally, excuse me, in Newton, Massachusetts. So we have the benefit within Massachusetts of him being within close proximity to us. However, he is offering alternatives to the vaccination. So if you feel like you need an extra layer of protection once you're given the clear after your treatments, I would advise for you to reach out to him to take a more natural approach in the event that you're still confused. But I do just want to let you know that it is scientifically proven that the monoclonal antibodies are suffice in the battle for recovering after coronavirus infection. So I just want to put that out there so that you can rest with comfort and sleep with ease. There are alternatives out there. It's just not enough information sharing because the encouragement for financial gain is being pushed toward the vaccine intake. Lucinda, I don't know if you have any additional information to add to that, but I'm sure you do. I read your book, so I'm sure you do.
Well, there's several things that, in hearing the conversation back and forth there. Number one, you have an immune system that has been given to you from birth. And our job is to make sure that it works effectively. And we can do that by feeding it certain things, berries and fruit and vegetables and herbs that tend to clean out the system as well as build up the immune system. And there's very specific names in these, like golden seal and any of your greens. And that's a whole study in itself and a whole lecture in itself. But the thing is, we have the ability we have a built-in factory installed, if you will, immune system from the day we're born. Now, we've been told through the years that when a vaccine is supposed to be, basically, you take a virus, you somehow deaden it, you inject it into a person's body, their body makes antibodies toward this supposedly deadened virus or weakened virus, and then they have immunity for life. This is what we've been told with chickenpox, with the many different things that people are vaccinated for. The whole concept, though, of vaccinations, to be perfectly truthful with you, is that vaccinations are now a delivery system for other things besides things that strengthen your immune system. As a matter of fact, there's even things in the vaccines that depress your immune system. And then all the other reasons that I gave you tonight, of what it does to your system long term. And then this particular COVID vaccine and the series of COVID vaccines do something completely different. It's a whole new ball game with this particular vaccine and this series of vaccines. They're not like all these previous vaccines. I don't even call it a vaccine. I call it an injection. I don't think it's a vaccine. That's my personal opinion, studying the components of this injection. It does not even look like a vaccine to me, like the other ones were. And I was opposed to the first groupings of ones. When you have a baby like you do, that's only, very young, and you're constantly being confronted by doctors to get into this series of vaccines as the child is growing, you have to realize that when you put heavy metals, for instance, in the baby's body as it's going through certain stages of development, there is no way you can recapture that stage of development if it's damaged. And we're learning this through the autism, through the different digestive issues children are having, through the different mental and brain issues and nerve issues they're having, like ADHD and all of these different autistic spectrum type things. When they're growing, they have to have certain nutrients available. If they're blocked, then the body just skips on and goes to the next one. It can't recapture that again. And that's where you get permanent damage. It's so serious. And I think the whole thing is very evil.
So now that you've heard from the doctor and now that you've heard from the herbalist, I hope that you have some sort of understanding that blank works. Let's fill in the blank with whatever you want to call it. We call it herbs and tinctures, but others use alternative treatments, organic medicine, etc. You get the point.
I spent day and night researching all the current drugs that are being used to treat patients around the world with COVID. The process was long and extensive because there are endless studies and treatments out there that are yielding amazing results. Unfortunately, because of the misinformation guidelines, I can't name any of those studies here, nor can I mention the names of the medications and treatments that I came across. But trust me, it's all online.
So after gathering all this info, she went into her books and started looking for the herbal alternative to these ingredients. Because if you didn't know, all medications are derived or produced from an herb first. So after several days of cross-referencing and looking through her books, boom, she found it. She found the best alternative herbs that are also found in these medications and treatments, which led to the creation of this tincture, the Virus Buster.
This herbal tincture contains neem, ginger root, mullein leaf, and licorice root. I know you probably never heard of these before, so I got some homework for you all. After watching this video, go and research the herbs yourself. I am absolutely confident that you'll be just as shocked as I was when I discovered that these herbs could literally terminate any virus in your body. They remove mucus, which is important when it comes to viruses, and they clear your lungs and respiratory system, which is another key factor. And they even stop the replication of a virus in your body. Boom.
Everything you just heard was an absolute fact, but I know what you're saying now. Where's the science on this, Lee? The science is online. It's been online for years. As a matter of fact, one of the drugs that we found the alternative to that's in the Virus Buster is in a controlled study right now as we speak to treat COVID in people all around the world. These are the same herbs and remedies that have been used for years by our ancestors to combat viruses. They literally grow out of the ground. So now, Lee, how do I consume these herbs to get the benefits from them? Great question. Koya?
Luckily for you, the hard part has already been done. In my herbalism studies, I learned how to create very potent tinctures These are concentrated liquids which are created by combining alcohol or a kid-friendly organic liquid with herbs into a jar where they are heated in hot water for 3 days. During those 3 days, the medicine from the herbs is being extracted into the liquid. Then, once it's all done, I pour out the contents into an already prepared container and voila, you have a powerful homemade virus-busting medicine. How do I know this works? Because I used just a couple of these ingredients on my husband and he's now healed. Just a couple. Imagine if I would have used the whole virus buster as it stands today. In my online research and classes, I've heard several stories of people who have recovered from viruses as a result of taking a mixture of these herbs. And to me, that's all the proof I needed.
But what about the elephant in the room? Yeah, the magic potion. Ah, yes. If you haven't heard already, the potion is doing a lot of harm, especially to people who are not at risk anyway. But please, don't take my word for it. Watch and listen for yourself.
Okay, so the concluding statement. I mentioned the noble lie. The noble lie has 3 elements to it. The first is that the way that we get out of this economic situation we're in, because of course, like I said, it's all about the money. The way that we get out of this economic situation and reduce disease and death, morbidity and mortality for COVID. The thesis is that the only way to do that is to reach herd immunity. The second part of the noble lie is that the only way to reach herd immunity is with vaccination. The third part of the noble lie is that vaccination is perfectly safe. All of those are false.
In particular, what we now know is official policy is we have these cardiotoxicities, pericarditis and myocarditis. That's not nothing. You're talking about long-term compromise of heart function in young people. We don't know about a whole lot of other risks, and there's many that are potential that appear to be in the data, but they're not yet officially identified.
So what are the, if I'm trying to decide whether I want to get vaccinated, I'm, say, a healthy person or a young person, or I'm a mother like looking at my child, what do I got to worry about directly from this vaccine that your technology actually has facilitated?
And Peter, just to recap, it's not just the mRNA. The other technology, the J&J vaccine, uses adenoviruses. So it's also a gene therapy-based application of vaccines. The adenoviral vectors probably produce even more spike protein over a longer period of time than the mRNAs do. So they're all of one category, and they got all the same spectrum of concerns. So in what we have now is official recognition, finally, of the cardiotoxicity risks. So that is the heart disease and damage, pericarditis and myocarditis, that can last for a lifetime. You don't fix damaged heart, you scar damaged heart. You don't replace it once it's happened. So all this it's talk about, oh, this is just a transient myocarditis. Talk to the pediatric cardiologist. Talk to the practicing cardiologist. It's not just in the young, by the way.
It hasn't probably been done because the government doesn't want to show that the darn vaccine is full of shit.
Tell us about who this person is.
Dr. Gonzalez is one of our emergency room doctors at Phoenix Indian Medical Center.
And she's a federal employee?
Correct.
Now you got this guy in room 4 who got his second dose of vaccine on Tuesday, has been short of breath.
He's got prone myocarditis.
Yes.
Oh, this is bullshit.
And
now,
let's see.
Probably myocarditis due to the vaccine.
Right.
But now they're not going to blame the vaccine.
Well, and you know what? But he has an obligation to report that, doesn't he?
They are not reporting.
Right.
Because they want to shove it under the mat.
What patient was she referring to?
She was referring to that patient, that 30-something-year-old patient that had congestive heart
failure. And in that particular patient's case, it was not reported.
No.
The problem in here, they are not doing the studies. People that had it, you know, and the people that have been vaccinated, they're not doing any antibody testing.
It's super fishy.
Not that it hasn't been done, it hasn't been published.
It hasn't probably been done because the government doesn't want to show that the darn vaccine is full of shit.
The government doesn't want to show that the vaccine is full of shit.
It's not doing what its purpose was.
May I see your badges? You're Jody O'Malley with the Department of Health and Human Services. This is the United States government identification. I'm looking at the CDC website. It says that you're required to report adverse events following vaccinations. One of those would be congestive heart failure.
That's a huge one.
Were there other instances that they didn't report?
Oh, I've seen dozens of people come in with an adverse reaction.
Yeah, it's really sad. She had just come back from surgery, from leave.
So what are we looking at here?
You're looking at me transferring her to a higher level of care that could handle her condition.
And this is a colleague at your hospital who got sick.
She didn't want to take it because of her religious beliefs. And she was coerced into taking it.
Why are you choosing to blow the whistle? It's not what a lot of people would do. They're scared, they're afraid. Are you afraid?
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm afraid because my faith lies in God and not man. This is evil at the highest level. You have the FDA, you have the CDC that are both supposed to be protecting us.
Are you afraid they're going to retaliate against you?
Yeah. I'm a federal employee. What other federal employees do you see coming out?
But you put your faith in God.
Amen.
Dr. Carrie Madej says that she's personally examined multiple vials of the vaccines that are being forced into people's arms, and she says that she was horrified by what she saw. She says she cried harder than she ever has before. She says other American labs have looked at the contents of the vaccine vials only to shut down shortly after. And Dr. Carrie Madej joins us now. Doctor, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Stu. It's my pleasure to be here.
So you sent these images to the show. I've looked at them. I have to say that I was creeped out, but then again, I realized I don't know what I'm looking at here, so help me out.
Okay, so first of all, it was in July that a local lab in Georgia said they wanted me to examine contents of a vial that they had just received. This vial was fresh. It had already been used to be injected into at least one patient. Because it was the end of the day, they were going to discard it. So they were able to get the vial. And this particular vial was Moderna. And so I was there to witness them getting that and putting some of the contents on a glass slide with a compound microscope to look at it. And it was nothing was added to this solution. Nothing was diluted. No human tissue was added. Only the white light for the microscope. And of course, over time, it was becoming more room temperature from the refrigeration. That was it. And so at first it looked just translucent. And then as time went on, over 2 hours, colors appeared, which I've never seen anything like this. There wasn't a chemical reaction happening. It was a brilliant like blue and royal purple and a yellow and sometimes green. And so these colors appearing, I did not know what that was. After investigating a superconducting material can do that with white light being emitted to it. Okay, a superconducting material would be something like an injectable computing system. Anyhow, these fibers were appearing more and more. Some of the fibers had a little cube structure on that. I'm not sure what that was. And also metallic fragments were in there. They were not metallic fragments I'm used to seeing, more exotic. They're very opaque, as well as, as the edge of the cover slide goes, so the cover slip, when you put a glass partition on that or a piece on top of the glass slide, there are edges. And so all the particulates, all these colors started to move to the edge, and there was self-assembling going on. Things were growing. They looked synthetic. And then there was one particular, I'd say, object or organism, I'm not sure what to call it, that had tentacles coming from it. And it was able to lift itself up off of the cover. I'm sorry, off of the glass slide.
It was
on the edge of the
alive?
cover slide.
Like the thing was alive?
It appeared to, yeah, it appeared to be self-aware or be able to grow or move in space. I mean, all I can tell you is this is not something they taught us in medical school, nothing in my laboratories, nothing that I've seen before. And I've showed this to other people in the field and they don't know what it is either. And I thought when I first saw this and I kept looking at it over and over again, I had a colleague with me and we both thought, wow, this almost appears like it's self-aware, like it knows we're watching it.
Hey everybody, Alex Newman here with the New American, and we've got more coverage of the COVID issues and the vaccines. And today we're joined by a very special guest. You may have seen him on Fox News. That's where he first came to our attention with some very interesting comments he made on Laura Ingram's program. He is a German microbiologist and doctor, Dr. Sucharit Bhakti. And he has an incredible background, an incredibly interesting career in multiple different fields. And he has had some ideas about coronavirus and the vaccines that kind of go counter to at least the mainstream narrative. So we're very honored to have him. Dr. Bhakti, thank you so much for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Why is this vaccine so dangerous? Let me go to the last part, okay? It's useless for the young, under 70. It's useless for the elderly because it's not been tested. And why is it dangerous? Why do I think it's dangerous? I'm going to tell you. Look, if this is the virus hand that is going to open the door to your cell, okay? The theory behind all of this is that you're going to take this hand, put it in your body, so that you make antibodies against this hand, so that these antibodies, when the hand comes to grasp the handle, this is now an antibody, okay, this is the hand, will come and stop it from grasping the handle. Now, that would be a conventional vaccine. The modern vaccines, which are gene-based, are different. And they are different because they don't take the hand, they take the gene that contains the information for the hand, the gene. So you are getting packages of the gene that encodes the hand, and they're putting it in your muscle. Not one, a billion packages, okay? That goes into the muscle. It goes into your lymph, but it goes also into your bloodstream. And this has never been told to you guys. You are getting a viral gene into your bloodstream and it's going to circulate. Now, your bloodstream is a closed system of tunnels, okay? Pipes. And once in there, in the blood, that package or those packages, millions and millions of those packages of the gene, will never get out again because they're trapped. Okay? They will then enter the cells that they are offered to. These are the blood cells. But the main cells that they will access, now no one ever tells you this because no one has ever looked. The companies that have produced those vaccines have never looked and never published. But I tell you, I thought a lot about this, and I came up with this only answer that a scientist can come up. It's those cells, lining the blood vessels. So if this is the lining of a blood vessel, okay? The blood is in front here. This cell takes up that gene. Then this cell starts to produce the gene. Now these cells line your blood vessels all over your body, in all organs, okay? That cell is now going to start producing the gene. This virus gene is the spike protein of the virus, the hand, and it will start, you see this, coming out of the cell. At the same time, waste, trash, is produced of this protein that hasn't been used. And that trash that is produced during the production, the cell places in front of its door. So you have the spike and the waste. Now, this spike itself has a wonderful property, a property that is wonderful for science, but not wonderful for you, because it has the propensity, it has the ability to, now what is coming is a platelet. These platelets are those little cells that start blood clotting going. The moment it touches, this platelet gets activated and starts wanting to start the blood clotting.
Oh, yeah.
Regrettably, there's another type of cell that comes around to see the trash. And this cell is the killer lymphocyte. And your killer lymphocytes are trained to see trash of viruses, because then they will come and try to kill the cell that is daring to produce the virus, which is the cell that lines your wall, the tapestry of your wall. Blood vessels. This can happen anywhere. But because, you know, in medicine you learn about these things. Blood flows at different speeds. Blood flows very slowly in your veins, okay? Blood flows slowly in the vessels, the capillaries, because, for instance, in the lung, you have to have this gas exchange, okay? Ah, gosh. It's actually so logical. Where do you think most of the virus packages are going to be taken up? I don't know. And the pharmaceutical industry doesn't know because it never looked. It never looked. But they should have looked. Damn it. They should have looked. Because maybe now you, humans, are being part of the largest experiment ever performed in the history of mankind. Scientific experiment.
In conclusion, thank you for your time
and attention as it relates to this important time
in our lives. And also, I leave you with this.
The laws in this country were not written to control us.
They were written to protect us from people who are trying to control us, who are trying to mandate things on us,
who are trying to censor us and keep us from being informed about what's really happening.
Wake up, people. Get educated.
Don't just give in to make others feel comfortable, because in the long run, you're gonna wish that you took that red pill.